Welcome to Lead to Succeed, a podcast where you hear first-hand leadership stories, tips and hacks to enhance your career and life. Lead to Succeed is brought to you by Zahi ABdein and Osama Al-Mosa.
So, welcome to Lead to Succeed podcast. So this is our first episode, Osama. I'm really excited to partner with you on this excellent and interesting podcast that we're going to be having bi-weekly, by the way. So, Osama, what's in your mind?
Thank you, Zahi. I have the same interest, same excitement that I'm sharing with you. And looking forward to this journey together. Let's have fun. Let's have also great moments of learning and to see how can we further add value to leaders and learning and development professionals in our region.
Absolutely. We've known each other for about 10 years. We were both volunteering for a mentorship program, if you remember that.
The old days. Yes,
it was. Since then, we clicked, and it's been a fun journey so far. We shared a lot of partnerships, I would say. We've shared a lot of topics, deep conversations, not only in Amman, but also in different countries in the Middle East. I know we've sat together quite a few times in Dubai as well. So we're both coaches, executive coaches, as well as leadership and talent development consultants and trainers. And there's a lot that we're going to be doing in this podcast.
Yeah, it has been a fascinating journey, Zahi. I recall the moment when we met for the first time, and I recall the moments in Dubai sharing the facilitation and support for different leadership development program, and I'm looking for more. Let's hope for the best, and we're here to try and always join the effort for the best of the bigger community.
Absolutely. So later we're going to have an interview with an amazing person. He contributed a lot to leadership, Dr. David Altman from the Center for Creative Leadership. And it's going to be a great interview. And after that, we're going to have a segment to close out this podcast, this episode, where we're going to share some tips and tricks and hacks, and that's going to be on a bi-weekly basis. Basically, we're going to have 3 segments. The first segment, we're going to do an introduction, have a conversation about what's new, what's trending at that time. Then we're going to have the interview with a thought leader. And the last segment of our podcast is going to be about those tips, hacks, just giving people some tools and things to add to their toolbox and hopefully benefit and they can use at work. So looking forward to it.
Dave is a great addition to start our podcast by inviting him. We know Dave for long, and we know the research that CCL is doing. So I'm looking forward for a very rich podcast from Dave. He's gonna add a lot to us. CCL research has been now for more than 50 years focused only around leadership development. And they have different understanding. They don't discount the importance of the leadership competencies of the leader, but they also top this up with the importance of having overall system very inducive and conclusive. So they look into leadership from a systemic perspective. And let's wait for it, and let's see what's the addition from Dave. Looking forward to it, Zahi.
Absolutely, same here. So tell me, what's been in your mind lately?
It's a continuation to talk about systemic look and a comprehensive look into leadership. I can see and sense the trends into team coaching, and I know you have something as well in this dimension too. I see that just to look into leadership development based on the leadership capabilities, based on the competencies of a leader, this is great, but it's not enough. It's like when you have one shark in the ocean, two sharks in the ocean. So how about the rest? How about the ocean itself? How supportive is this medium for? So I'm referring here to the organization culture, to the different stakeholders, the ecosystem, all in all, and how can we enhance that system to further support leaders? And I see really major trends are going there into a more approach to just looking into the leader himself or herself.
Absolutely. I mean, and this is a topic we've discussed in the past about how sustainable and how effective is executive and leadership coaching on a one-on-one basis. We know that at an individual level, it's really effective. And we know how impactful it is to the coachee and to the organization that they work in. And I'm really looking forward to this team coaching, and that's where I believe that the industry is going to grow in a great way. A couple of days ago, I've attended a webinar by a couple of our colleagues, Peter Hard and Kathleen Vogan. And they were talking about how different team coaching from group coaching and how effective it is. And I mean, it's really, it was an eye opener for me. I mean, I'm new to this topic. And it was a great way to introduce the topic to me. And also they talked a lot about how team coaching is also different than other team building activities, different than team development workshops, teamwork activities, and so forth. So I'm really looking forward, especially that ICF is really paying attention to this topic, and they're doing a lot of surveys and a lot of studies on that on this topic. So really looking forward to it.
Yeah, more to come, Zahi. Also, just recently, ICF announced the list of team coaching competencies too. Mm-hmm. They are all in alignment to ICF core competencies, but they have put the context of how to further polish the behavioral indicators while supporting teams and teams dynamics. When we're talking about coaching, it's all about non-directive learning. It's all about strength-based learning. So then add to this the way and the philosophy behind team coaching, that you don't deal with individuals within the team. You just deal with the relationship, with the bonding. Yeah. Absolutely. So by the end, instead of having 1 + 1 as equals 2, then it's beyond that, where the sum is not going to equal that the
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean it's beyond. Yeah, it's 1 + 1 = 3, 4. It depends on how much you're going to build the us intelligence in that system, Zahi.
Absolutely, and it deals a lot with the dynamics of that team, because we both know that leadership and leadership is not a straightforward thing. It's not. Different people deal with it in different ways. The relationship dynamics is different from one person to another, and when you put that in a mix of a group, that of course the results we cannot anticipate the results, and we can, a lot of time we're surprised by the results.
Yeah, there is no one person is similar, no one team is different is similar too. It's every team is different.
Absolutely. So welcome. Our guest today is Mr. David Altman. David has earned his BA in psychology at the University of California, Santa Barbara, and an MA and PhD in social ecology from the University of California, Irvine. David, you've also completed the postdoctorate fellowship at Stanford University, and we're really happy to have you. Welcome to Lead to Succeed podcast. This is our first podcast, so we're really honored to have you. We know that you work with CCL, and Osama and I are proud associates of Center for Creative Leadership, and we really love what it does to advance the practice of leadership, not only in the US, but also in the Middle East and around the world. So welcome, David, and we're really happy to have you.
It's an honor and privilege to be with both of you today.
Wonderful.
Thank you, David. Thank you. It's a great pleasure. We just love to be part of CCL, and we love that you're our first guest here. Let's warm it up. Let's just give it a light touch. So what's up for you these days? What's in your head, in your heart, and in your hands? What makes you busy? Thank you.
Well, what's going on across the world, certainly where I'm living these days, which is the United States, we're seeing the necessity of building bridges and spanning boundaries between all kinds of people. And, part of that, and what I've come to more deeply understand is, humans have tribal tendencies, which lead us to treat people who we perceive to be different from us, not in our in-group. We treat them differently. And so that's part of human nature. It's part of our survival instinct. It can bring positive benefits because you have community, but it can also lead to separation and bias and conflict and poor human relations. And, at CCL and elsewhere, we study this, like what's the root of these biases? How does it lead to stereotyping and prejudice and discrimination? But the key point is these are behaviors, and we can build bridges and connect diverse people. So that's one topic that's very much on my mind. There's two more. One is how we individually and collectively thrive in a rapidly changing world. And, you work with CCL, so you know that we try to help individuals and teams and organizations and communities, sometimes even countries, embrace what's happening and find strength and resilience to help move leaders and leadership collectives to make the world a better place. You talked about that in the intro. So, gosh, how do you do that? Well, that's part of my job. That's part of your jobs. It's part of the jobs of CCL and other organizations. So a couple things come to mind for me. One, higher purpose. Like, why are we doing this? So in order to thrive in a rapidly changing world, we have to always keep in mind something larger than ourselves, the higher purpose. Second, and this is something recent in my studies, is Stoicism. It's kind of a philosophical perspective. And basically, you say to yourself, I can only control what I can control. So I'm not going to get distracted by things I can't change. So I've got to have self-control, and I've got to have strength to control my emotions and to just keep moving on despite all these rapid changes that are happening. And then the third thing that I've been thinking about, and this is a CCL initiative that you know about, is it's resilience. We've been calling it burn bright. So, you know the term, people burn out. So resilience is overused. So we are now talking about how do you burn bright or burn brightly? How do you, in the face of stress and change, overcome that and be a light for the world? And so, and do it in a sustainable way. And we know you can't, day in and day out, hour and by hour, always work harder, work longer hours, push. You've just like an athlete, you've got to step back and recharge your battery and build the resources in order to be successful in the rapidly changing world. So those are the things on my mind these days.
Wonderful. I love that term, burn bright. That's a that's a really wonderful, beautiful name. So great, thank you. So looking at your background, how did you land as whatever you're doing right now from CCL? How did it all come together to this point?
Yeah. It's a checkered background, so to speak. I mean, what I'd like to be able to say, it was linear, it was planned. I had a life plan. And for your young listeners, let me debunk that myth. So, and I encourage your listeners to pull up a older commencement talk that Steve Jobs gave at Stanford University in 2005, I recall. And it was an amazing talk. And I, as you noted, worked at Stanford. So I'm always attuned to what's going on there. And he said something like this: you can't connect the dots going forward in your life. You can only connect them when you look back. So you've got to trust that these connection dots, when you're in the moment, will make sense when you look back at them in the future. And maybe it's gut, or maybe it's karma, or maybe it's religion or trust or your destiny. You know, people have different drivers, but you can't connect your dots going forward. And Jobs gave some examples of that vis-a-vis Apple. And that's my story too. Like when I look back on my career, it all makes sense. The decisions that I made were all connected. But in the moment, it was like, what am I doing? Why am I leaving Stanford? Why am I leaving academic medicine, public health? I love it, to join CCL. Why am I leaving my research job at CCL to move to Europe and run EMEA? I don't want to leave Europe. Why am I going back to the US, et cetera? So there's a couple of lessons that I'm reminded of. So you can't connect it going forward, but keep your options open. Don't completely close doors, especially if you're early in your career. So that's one thing. Second, when you feel like your trajectory of learning is slowing down or is, stopping, it's time to move on. Because we as humans thrive by learning and growing. And if you're not, that's a warning sign. And for me, I've been blessed, and partly it's me, and partly it's luck, and partly it's the places I've worked and my colleagues. If you're not energetic about getting out of bed every day to go to work, and I've been that way every day of my career, then and if that continues for weeks and months, and you have options, your socioeconomic status that you can choose, then consider moving on. Because the worst thing is to be unhappy. You're spending 8, 10, 15 hours a day working and you hate it, you're going to just die as a human being. A couple other things come to mind, and then I'll stop. For me, it's clear that I had amazing teammates, amazing colleagues in every team and every organization that I worked with and for. And they helped me learn, they challenged me, they supported me. Seek out opportunities, not just the job, but explore the people that you're going to be interacting with. And then finally, and this relates back to Steve Jobs saying, have trust in something that it's going to work out. Not all your decisions, and none of the decisions that I made, was there any guarantee it was going to work? I couldn't quantify. It wasn't a regression analysis that had a certain predictability. It's like, okay, I'm going to just jump, and I'm going to assume that I and my colleagues, we're going to make it work. So that's my story when I look back on my background.
Great. I can feel the energy that you're possessing, talking about your past and what you're doing now and your work, and I love that. I mean, you're absolutely right. Connecting the dots, looking, we cannot do it looking forward. We can only do it looking backward. And whether your decisions that you're making were right or wrong, it really doesn't matter. But when you look at it, it all makes sense. And looking back at, of course, your journey, my journey, or Osama's journey, things do make sense. I mean, when we're looking back, and there's a lot of learning, a lot of failures, maybe sometimes a lot of, a lot of successes. And what matters the most is what you're doing today is something that you love doing, that you love waking up and you're looking forward to doing. So thank you for your answer.
Yeah, one quote, just to build on that.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Osama.
I resonated a lot when you brought in the impact of the team. And here it's a good point to explore further. We heard, and we still hearing a lot around leadership development and how to look into leadership, how to understand leadership. Some schools would think of leadership as the individual leader competencies, and some, among which CCL sees more into the more holistic social system that's gonna support leaders, and leadership is about the social system rather than just, it's not to discount the importance of individual competencies, but it's more into the holistic view of leadership. So for you and your background into social ecology and psychology, how did you see leadership? What does leadership mean to you?
Yeah, that's a really important question. It's a leading question, given that I have a master's and PhD in social ecology. So a couple of things. Number one, while I did my university undergraduate work in psychology, I didn't do, it was more social and community psychology. So I am very much into systems and understanding context, and that was part of your question. And I think that the field of leadership development is overrepresented by scholars, researchers, but also practitioners on the front lines that look through the lens of individual psychology, personality, individual characteristics. And the field often overlooks the fact that we live in a broader context of social groups and community and society and macro level sociological factors that affect who we are and what we do. So while I have degrees in social ecology, your question is a reminder to me to continue to take into account the individual, but go beyond the individual, because we are affected by context. And, I think we need to bring people into the field, the scholars and practitioners who have more diverse perspectives, who see leadership in different ways. And then I think we're going to get away from these heroic individual leader models that you refer to and start thinking about the larger ecosystem in which leadership expresses itself.
Yeah, David, it's very interesting. Yeah, we also see trends into team coaching and the requests around how to enhance the bonding between team members. We see trends into the ecosystem and how we can involve stakeholders while we're developing the leadership of certain teams. And when we look at what's going on now, we used to say in the past, we're looking for the future, and now we're in the future, especially with 2020 and the new visitor of COVID. So how do you see that from a global perspective? How would the understanding around leadership differ?
Yeah. Well, to your point about teams, it's, people in leadership positions, and I'm one of them, come to realize one day that they're only as good as the people around them. And individuals can make a difference in organizations and in communities and in society. But at the end of the day, they are part and parcel of other people. And so, in the context of leading a group in an organization, you have to attend to other people. Now, expanding that to global dynamics and leadership, the thing is, regardless of the pandemic and challenges in the global economy and conflict and all that kind of stuff, leadership still matters. It still matters. And it's clear that leadership at all levels, not at the top of organizations, matter more than ever before. And so there's a lot of talk at CCL and elsewhere about how do we call it democratize it, but how do we scale it out? How do we bring leadership development not just to the privileged people at the top of organizations, but down? And, we all know that some of the most fabulous leaders globally are young people. And so they haven't been through CCL programs, although we do some work with young people, but it's that scalability or democratizing it, making it available to all. So that's a trend that I think is in play. And certainly in the Middle East, you have, in most countries, populations that have high representation from young people. Those young people want to know more about leadership. They are leaders, but they want to do more leadership. We shouldn't leave them out. And we shouldn't wait till they're in their 30s or 40s to give them opportunities. Some of the long-standing issues that we have faced in society continue to play out when we look through the global lens: power, influence, et cetera. So those things are still in play. And a big trend is, and we're experiencing it right now in this moment, is how we're more interconnected through technology, through travel. And our conceptions of borders have changed. And sometimes even our sense of identity, who we are, is challenged because we're connecting tribes that we're in with tribes that, 20 years ago, before all this technology, it was very difficult to get connected. So there's a downside, and we're seeing some of that with the use of technology for bad purposes. But this interconnection across the globe is really a really significant issue that we need to continue to study, but also leverage.
You opened my appetite by bringing in the Middle East to the focus here. And I just think of the cultural impact on leadership development. And, Middle East is somehow more, we respect the hierarchy, we respect the authority. So here as well, the way you see it with the future and where are we going, what do you think of what's going to change in the Middle East, taking that factor, the cultural factor, into consideration? What's going to change as well in how we are here in this region are going to look into leadership?
Yeah. Well, so it's a very interesting topic. So you can, respecting hierarchy and unleashing human potential of people lower in the hierarchy, that's not either or, in my opinion. You can do both. So you can still respect the fact that there is hierarchy, and we work, as you know, because you work with us, we work with a number of leaders in a variety of countries in the Middle East, and we're increasingly seeing them being capable of leveraging their hierarchical influence and power, and understanding that in this world in which there's this expansion of technology, everything is digital transformation, that and that it's important to reach hard to reach and underserved populations. I mean, if you just look in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, all kinds of initiatives to engage young people, that in order to do that, you can't just control it at the top of the organization. People in their 50s and 60s who may not be as sensitive to and understanding of what's happening on the ground. So forward-thinking leaders in the Middle East will be able to manage that paradox or that polarity of, culture and history with the reality of the current day. And what we're seeing, and I suspect you are too, is this huge interest in and investment in leadership development and human development among organizations in the Middle East. You know, from where I sit, and it's a global role, but I'm in the US, the number of requests that we're getting from Middle East organizations or organizations that have their headquarters in the Middle East exceed what we're seeing in other parts of the world. So there is keen interest and a level of understanding about the importance of human development, of which a part is leadership development. And, you know, given all the young people, which I've mentioned, the talent pool in the Middle East is immense. It's immense. But if it is untapped and young people are not given opportunities, and in some countries where it's culturally appropriate, women are not given opportunities, you're leaving human talent, human capability off to the side, you know, on the sidelines. We need to get that immense talent on the playing field, exerting their perspectives and helping drive these amazing countries to new heights. And the last thing I'll say about the Middle East is what we're seeing, and we work with a few organizations where they're going beyond the borders of where their headquarters is located. So that might be a city within a country. It might be an organization headquartered in a Middle Eastern country who are expanding to the Gulf region. And in some cases, they're going beyond the Gulf. You have unicorns, that is companies that are $1 billion. They're starting to emerge all over the Middle East. So I think the region's on the precipice, on the edge of something potentially dramatic if leaders of the region and leaders within companies and countries can, as I said before, unleash this tremendous potential that exists there.
Osama,
Zahi.
what a great interview. First half of the interview. What a great insights from Mr. David Altman. What do you think?
Yeah, very rich. It was very striking for me as well when he talked about boundary spanning. And here as well, I want to refer to CCL white paper where they define boundary spanning. It is when leaders can work with a great variety of people from different positions, background, and location. So managers used to do it traditionally in a more vertical way. So they used to do it within the organization chart itself. While CCL identified 5 main boundaries to be considered from leaders, to do it vertically within the hierarchy, to do it cross-functional as well. So that's the horizontal dimension of it. To do it with the stakeholders, so you go beyond the organization itself. Boundary spanning is also about being able to do it within the different demography, name it, be it that is gender, ethnicity, nationality, and so on and so forth. And the final dimension is the geography. So you do be able to do it across regions and within the local setup. And it's to you as well, Zahi. What was your catch?
Absolutely. I mean, boundary spanning is more important today than ever because of the situation that we're in with COVID-19. So yes, this is one of the very major highlights. For me, what struck me, I like what he said about how to thrive in today's world. And he mentioned 3 things. First is to have a higher purpose, which is great. Second one is Stoicism. Basically control what you can control, and let it go of the things that we cannot control. And we all know the circle of influence, circle of concern, that's really popular. And the third one is resilience. And I love the term that's being used is burn bright or burn brightly, the term that he used. And that's stuck with me. And I think that's going to stick with me for a long time. So it was I loved the first half of this interview, and really looking forward for the second half.
Interesting. Looking forward to it too, Zahi.
Thank you for listening to Lead to Succeed podcast. If you like this podcast, please remember to give us 5-star rating, share it with your family and friends, and follow us on social media. We also welcome you to send us your ideas, suggestions, and any question. Our contact details will be found on the podcast description. This is Osama and Zahi, and until next time, make sure to remain authentic, keep learning, and to enjoy life.